Hey guys, it's Jack. I wanted to let you know that we're starting a new push for subscriptions here on Human Events Daily. So make sure that when you're listening to this podcast, you hit subscribe, you download it, and you share it with 5 of your friends. Make sure they're all going and downloading as well, because we need to get the signal out as much as possible. Look, we've done so much over the past couple of years since this show started, and we're only going to do so much more. Let's get it. This is what happens when the fourth turning meets fifth generation warfare.
A commentator, international social media sensation, and former Navy intelligence veteran.
This is Human Events with your host, Jack Posobiec.
Christ is king.
Overnight, a victory for progressive Democrats in battleground Michigan. In the closely watched, high-stakes Democratic Senate primary, voters choosing Abdul Al-Sayed as their party's Senate nominee, defeating establishment-backed Congresswoman Haley Stevens.
Tomorrow we begin to mend fences. We have a responsibility to assure that we unite to make sure that Mike Rogers never sees the inside of the U.S. Senate.
The Democrat Party as a whole is still stuck in 2016. They're still stuck in that mindset. And the Republican Party is rapidly changing. If the Democrats don't try to change their own to fight back, it's going to be a lost cause.
They go low, we don't go high. We take them to the mud and choke them out.
Who are you supporting in the Senate race today?
Abdul.
And why is that?
Because he doesn't take money from AIPAC. We got to start taking care of home, and instead of the same old status quo.
Well, as you well know, ICE has nothing to do with the southern border, and I think we need to abolish it and start from scratch.
I don't want somebody that's in somebody else's pocket, that they have to agree to what they want to. You know, too many people like that in politics.
And the people keep telling us they don't think their incomes are keeping up with inflation. So do they see an answer from either party? Obviously a critical question as we head into the midterms, right? Here's the answer. No. And let me start with the Republicans, because we get 55%, a majority of Americans saying they think Republican policies are actually hurting their cost of living. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into that really quick, because I want to show you this. It is the difference among Republicans on immigration for President Trump's approval and inflation for President Trump's approval. And look at this gap, 90, very, very strong on immigration, to 68 on inflation. So even a lot of Republicans are feeling the pinch.
Gas prices are above $4 a gallon. Today, look at this. The national average is $4.10. And experts say that's not coming down anytime soon. Remember, a year ago, a gallon of regular was $3.15. And right before the war with Iran, gas prices were less than $3 a gallon. All this as mortgage rates are nearly 7%.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily. We're here live on Real America's Voice. Today is August 5th, 2026, Anno Domini. And of course, folks have seen the news by now. Abdul Al-Sayed, the most anti-ICE, the most open borders candidate in America, just won a big upset in Michigan. This is a guy who hates ICE. He hates white people. He hates Americans. I guarantee you he hates American holidays just as much as Francesca Hong. I guarantee you he wants the same type of race-based policies as Zoran Mandami. By the way, all of these candidates, can I just pause for a second here? What is the deal with these guys? And they're constantly rug pullers, right? They're constant rug pullers. They promise one thing, they campaign another way. As soon as they win, they win the primary. So just another rug puller. And they have this thing that they do when they talk. I call it the progressive pause. Can we call it the progressive pause? They have a way of speaking. That is to pause a little bit, right in the middle of their sentences. We need a politics of looking to the future. We need a politics that's not looking to the past. We need a politics for the people. We don't need a politics that's against the people. It's this weird, like Barack Obama impression kind of rhetoric thing that I'm sorry, I just don't get. They all do it. They do it. Talarico does it. Ossoff does it. This progressive. Does this work for stupid voters? It must be. I guess you have to stop every once in a while so that stupid people can actually keep up with what you're saying. And clearly it wins because, it's effective because he won the primary. But they all do it. Even Graham Plattner, I know he dropped out, but even Graham Plattner was doing it up in Maine when he was speaking. I just wish that we could get money out of politics. And I just thought we could fight the machine. And I just thought that, you remember his little video? Look, here's what it comes down to. Okay? At the end of the day, Republicans do need to wake up because cost of living is going up in the perception of voters. And one of the most obvious places where they can see this is the price of gas. And I posted this tweet up and I said, hey, here, I just pulled it from Gas Buddy. I said, here's gas price for the last year from last 2 years, August 2024 to now, August 2026. And I said, look, you might want to sit there and say, oh, but Jack, what about the Biden and what about this and that? I said, look, it's not about what Biden did. It's about how voters perceive what you're doing for them now. You as a politician, and I'm speaking squarely to the Senate GOP, I'm speaking to the the House GOP. What are you doing to fix this? Because you're the ones up for election this year. You're the ones who have the midterm elections. What are you doing to fix this problem? Because voters see this every single day. And they don't care what happened in 2021 or 2022 or 2023. They care about today and they care about tomorrow. An election is about the future. Elections are about the future. Elections are about the future. You can't talk about stuff from years ago because elections are about the future. You have to offer voters something right now. Really simple. That's how voters, that's how psychology, that's how it all works. And today, we're going to talk to pollsters to see what they say. Right back, Jack Posobiec, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice.
Jack, where's Jack? Where's Jack? Where is he? Jack, I want to see you. Great job, Jack. Thank you. What a job you do. You know, we have an incredible thing. We're always talking about the fake news and the bad, but we have guys, and these are the guys who should be getting Pulitzers.
All right, folks, welcome back to Human Events Daily. In a world that's constantly changing, some things never should. Faith, family, freedom, and the values you choose to live by. Even your wireless provider can reflect those values. That's what Patriot Mobile has stood for more than 12 years. They serve Americans who want their dollars, supporting the Christian conservative movement, and organizers. I can't do it. I'm not gonna do it the progressive pause. I can't do it. I'm not gonna do it. Sorry, Glenn. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna do it the real way because I just can't talk like that because I know that you guys deserve better out there in the audience. Folks, making the switch is simple. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade to a new device. Their 100% U.S.-based customer support team can have you connected in minutes. If you're still paying off your current phone, they can even help you with a contract buyout. Patriot Mobile also gives you premium priority access across all 3 major U.S. networks, so you get dependable nationwide coverage without compromising your principles. If it matters who you trust it matters with your service and where your money goes, it's time to make the switch. So all Patriots right now, go to patriotmobile.com/POSO or call 972-PATRIOT. Use promo code POSO to get a free month of service. That's patriotmobile.com/POSO or give them a call, 972-PATRIOT. Make the switch today. All right, folks, we're going to get in. We're going to talk about these polls because we got Rich Barris, the People's Pundit, joining us now on Human Events. Rich, how are you, buddy?
Living the dream as always, my friend. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to see you down in Chattanooga. And Rich, I got to say, though, like we saw the win in Michigan. You've been predicting the rise of the anti-establishment candidates. But look, that's not what I brought you on to talk about because we got to talk about the progressive cause, the politics of change, the politics of the future. Why do they do it? Rich, why do they all talk like this? They're like a bunch of cartoon characters.
It's scripted. I mean, this is this is a mold. This is an entire tactic, and it's kind of smart to model it off of Barack Obama. But even though you were being coy a little bit, there's truth to it. So the cadence in their voice and everything, it does allow people to process what they're saying and allows for delivery. But this is all very well crafted, very well scripted, and there are going to be a bunch of them that follow this playbook because they know it works, Jack. And I'm not going to say stupid, but it does allow time for people to process what they're saying before they deliver the emotional hit. Which is, you ever notice that's what always comes after that delay?
Oh,
As you
100%.
were saying,
It's all emotion. It's pathos. To use the speaking. Josh Shapiro does this, by the way, in Pennsylvania. So my governor, and I've seen him do this since he was a state rep, since he was my county commissioner. He's gotten a lot worse over the years. He didn't used to do it when Josh Shapiro, like if you go back 2008 when I first met him. It's because it's so fake and it's so effective, and they don't always do it. You notice they call it code switching, right? So they'll drop it whenever they're having like a serious conversation, but when they get back to that stump, they're always up there.
We're gonna make the rich
talking about freedom.
Pay their fair share.
Josh Shapiro, when he says Donald Trump wants to step on your freedoms, I can't even do it because I don't know how to like talk from my throat like that. It's just it's beneath me. And just like Josh Shapiro because he's only 5'3", and Abdul Sayed because he's only about 5'4". And I'd love to see them have a height
bigger than those guys.
I wasn't going to go there, Rich. I wasn't going to go there. But Rich, look, they're all doing it. And to your point, it does work on a certain subset of the voting base. You see a lot. Look, I saw a coalition when going through the hashtags on this, or the hash marks, I should say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this looks a lot like the Mandami coalition. It looks like you saw the high affluent, high educated progressive voters and young voters going for, and migrants, of course, going for Syed. Then you saw blacks. I haven't seen the breakdown on Hispanics yet, but you did see blacks and working class whites going for Stevens. And so that reminds me a lot of the Mandami Cuomo progressive versus, sort of establishment fight in the New York City primary. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, I mean, and we should have expected this. And by the way, you said it. I'm just going to throw it in there real quick. If only somebody had written a book warning about all of this, maybe we could have avoided it. But it also included, Jack, I mean, some of this scared me a little bit. And some of the different vote shares, vote methods, right? How did they vote? By mail, in person, on election day? He did have a little bit stronger, even though the race was close. He did demographically, let's not use stronger, let's use more diverse. He did have a little bit more diverse of a coalition. And what concerned me the most is that looking at some of those counties like Macomb, he would do better in the early vote. And then she would do very well in especially in the election day vote that would come in from more conservative or working class areas. And then something happened later where it seemed like she had a very specific, and I'll tell you what I think it is. She had a very specific timing in her vote with certain vote batches that did well for her. And then even in places like Macomb, where we saw that she was winning that, we thought, okay, his margin will shrink even more. And it didn't shrink as much as we thought. Even in her own home county, where she underperformed, contrary to what some people are saying. That's where she represents, folks. Winning it by that margin is a humiliation. But I think there's an answer for this. She had a lot of money. And money in politics, it's a sad state of affairs, but it's just true. It's just a reality. It buys you a lot. It can run around and give people loosies to make sure they get their votes in. It can run around and target specific neighborhoods and specific groups of voters in a way that a more organic movement like El Sayed, he just didn't have the financial ability to do that. So his was much more organic. So if we look at places that weren't targeted and weren't high targeted media market areas, we can see the more organic elements of their coalition. And in that respect, where I do see that, I think, Jack, in some of these areas where Bernie did really well against Hillary Clinton in 2016, but by 2020, there weren't any Bernie voters there. It had completely flipped. He won only the urban progressive areas. And why? Because they all went to Donald Trump. Well, El Sayed was doing well in some of those areas in some of the later election day votes. He lost a city early vote in Detroit by 50 points, and the election day was basically tied. So it's concerning. There are still, contrary to what people think, there are still some working class areas where Donald Trump did very well in Wayne County.
Well, and so this is actually key, by the way, because it's going to be, now, of course, it'll be incumbent upon Rogers. So he's looking at this, and he's going to have to go now to independents. And yes, he's going to have to go to a swath of those Democrats to say, you know something, this guy is just too radical for Michigan. That's why you got to vote for me, or at the very least, stay home. Do you think Rogers has a path?
I mean, I think he has a path just from a probability point of view, but he is not favored here. He is not likely. You guys know me. I do not sugarcoat anything. And the fact of the matter is, with the exception of Donald Trump, Jack, winning Michigan in 2016 and winning it again, once or maybe twice, right? In 2024, definitely. And he won it fairly easily. There's little to suggest that Michigan really is a battleground state. Just to give people a little bit of history, this is why Trump's anti-war and populist platform had to be the future of the Republican Party. I can't believe after 10 years, we're still having to explain this to people. Before Donald Trump, Republicans had not won a U.S. Senate seat in Michigan since 1994. What happened in 1994 was an open seat, and it was the Republican Revolution. It was an extreme, not just a pro-Republican environment, a historically pro-Republican environment that ended decades of Republicans being locked out from some of these areas. But then they went on to lose it the very next cycle to Debbie Stabenow. And before they won it in 94, they hadn't won it since 1972. And then you get at the presidential level, and Trump was the first one to win it since 1988. I mean, guys, and the reason why I say this is not to be a doomer, with all these like low IQ people out there who want to create safe spaces, like the little cuckold, crybaby, leftist college kid that they used to make fun of apparently 4 years ago. Stick in reality for a second. And the reason why I say this is because it was important to keep Trump's platform. It was important to run candidates that supported and pushed Donald Trump's platform. A reversion to the old wing of the Republican Guard is the wrong move. You cannot win the Rust Belt like this. I've been on your show to talk with you about this, Jack, for years, countless times. Mike Rogers couldn't put it away when Donald Trump was on the ballot in 2024. And I know what the argument is. Well, he wasn't running against El Sayed. Well, that's great. And my argument is the polls that even have him remotely competitive are modeling electorates more Republican than Donald Trump even had. Mike Rogers underperformed Donald Trump in Oakland County in 2024. This is a Herculean task. It's not impossible. It's just not, I don't find it helpful to pretend like Mike Rogers can campaign the way he intends to campaign and still think that it's not going to end up anything else than an utter waste of money. Go give that money to Ken Paxton and make sure that Texas is shored up. I mean, just do that. Go give it to Ashley Hinson and make sure we don't lose Iowa. That's where we are right now. So people need to take their heads out of the sand. Playing ostrich does nothing. If Mike Rogers is going to be the neocon he was during the Iraq War, run on expanding FISA without reforms and, the Iran war, how popular that is, then you know what? GG, good luck. I don't know what to tell you. You're going to lose.
Yeah, and
you're probably going to lose badly.
This is, of course, going to be, by the way, we saw those, real quick, going on break, but Rich, we saw those same attack lines come out with El Sayed there in his victory speech, where he was making that this is the anti-establishment candidate versus a candidate that he is going to argue is part of the establishment, that insider base in Washington, D.C. And this is, as you've laid out, this is going to be the big danger, because this is how radical politicians get elected. Right back, Jack Posobiec, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice.
Talk about influencers. These are influencers, and they're friends of mine. Jack Posobiec. Where's Jack? Jack. He's done a great job.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back here, Human Events Daily, and every day, more and more of our personal information ends up online than most people even realize. Your name, your home address, your phone number, your family members, old addresses, email addresses, even information from past data breaches. It's often just a few clicks away. Hundreds of data broker websites will collect and publish that information, and unless you take action, it's going to stay right there. Someone with bad intentions can use those details to piece together where you live, who you're related to, and other personal information. If you are politically active, if you work in the media, or you simply value your family's privacy, it's worth taking seriously. Well, guess what? There's a solution. That's where Patriot Protect comes in. Patriot Protect works to remove your personal information from data broker websites before the wrong people can use it. Instead of waiting until after you've become a victim, they help make you much harder to find in the first place. A single phone scam or identity theft incident can cost thousands of dollars. Protecting yourself is a lot less expensive. Go to patriot-protect.com/POSO and use promo code POSO to save 15%. Take control of your privacy, add some digital camouflage to your life, and make yourself much harder to find online. All right, we're on with Rich Barris. And Rich, so this is something else I want to point out, that it seems to me that there's a lot of Republicans, particularly, we'll just say like old right Republicans, who seem to think that all you have to do is say, oh, he's a socialist, and that's all you have to do, and they're going to win. And Rich, so last week I kind of played this A/B test where I went up and I said, I don't think you guys understand how this works right now. Most people out there, particularly under a certain age level and particularly under a certain income level, view the word socialist positively. And in addition, and this is where I had a little fun, most people out there under a certain income level and under a certain age level see the word capitalist as negative. And Rich, guess what response I got when I attacked the word capitalist?
Yeah, I mean, I saw, I was watching, and here's what
number one
critics,
trend,
Yeah, it was up there for a while, Jack. But this is what your critics don't understand. Your definition of capitalism may even be skewed on how other people see it, but you're also being very dishonest about what you think we have in this country, all right? Or what you think we've had in this country. For Big Con, everyone knows it's fake. Everyone knows that capitalism for them ends at the water's edge. It ends at the corner of Wall Street and Broad. Capitalism is only for the little guy who's got to pull himself up by the bootstraps and eat ramen all through college, right? Until he can somehow scrape something for himself in this system that is totally rigged against him and rigged in favor of the privileged, who get a very different form, which is this very soft, cushy form of socialism. Robert Kennedy was right about that. This is what people need to comprehend. We don't live in 1980 anymore, okay? Reagan's not coming back, and the Reagan electorate is not coming back. You will never make people more afraid of the scary word socialism than they are at not being able to pay their own bills.
And Rich, so you've got, and let me give you the opportunity, because I know you have, we have this chart up that you went through and you racked and stacked the different priorities that voters have, and right up there, number one is cost of living,
which Democrats have a massive lead on. Now, this is widened out again since the peace deal fell apart. A lot of this tightened, Jack, after the president in June announced the MOU, which, what are we going to call it? The neocons attacked and pushed back and killed and made sure that it didn't continue. This had narrowed, and then this was taken again after fighting resumed. It's the optics of this entire thing, Jack, that the right doesn't seem to care at all about their priorities, and that they're prioritizing whatever it may be, the interests of lobbies or foreign countries.
Is this in order of importance for voters?
It
is. The way you
is.
have it laid out. So
100%.
So I want to run through it. It's inflation, cost of living is number one. Number two is economy, jobs. Number three is healthcare. Number four is crime and safety. Number five is immigration and border security. Number five, by the way, is the only one that Republicans are winning. Number six is accountability and corruption. That's your Epstein files. And number seven is foreign policy, national security, all the way at the bottom. And also, by the way, Democrats are winning on foreign policy and national security. So, Rich, this all sounds like, I'm just going to say it, it sounds like people out there are upset and they just want to burn it down.
Jack, you couldn't have said it better. Again, I wish somebody wrote a book about this. But just to point out why Democrats lead on foreign policy and national security, which is historically a very strong issue for Republicans generically in the congressional level, Senate, for president. They do because so many people are upset about how foreign policy and national security is being conducted. They want to shut it down. And we also ask, who do you trust more to keep us out of war? How important do you think it is? The bottom line is, this is about optics. People want their candidates that they're going to vote for. And you said this in the break, and you're right, that politics is always about the future. What can you do for the future? What can you do for us in the future? How could you make our lives better? Americans are instinctively forward thinking. This is all very, a lot of the Republican messaging right now sounds all very bushy, and that is not forward thinking. And I got to tell you, speaking of Bush, let me just bring up this little story, right, that I think Republicans need to, take their heads out of the sand and realize this could happen to them. There's it's not a famous scene, but people like me who do what I do know it well. In 1992, Herbert Walker Bush, sitting with then George W. Bush, who's not yet the president, was really stunned that he lost to Bill Clinton. He really had held out hope to the very end that he was going to win re-election. And he turned and he looked at George W. Bush and he said to his son, I really thought the war would carry us. And he was, almost like tears in his eyes. And it didn't. And to anybody who is an objective observer of that election, for somebody to say that, being the presidential ticket, being the presidential candidate, not remembering that you looked at your watch like you had other better things to do during the debate, and people were worried about, how they were going to deal with the economy. 7% unemployment back then. Prices were rising back then. What did Bill Clinton talk about? I feel your pain. What did James Carville famously say in that year?
Which is exactly what Abdul Sayed is up there saying.
Come on, what are we doing? Are we incapable of learning our own lessons? I got to tell you guys, I really feel like a lot of the right now is put themselves in this safe space, like I said before, like the left wanted to do in the Trump era, and you don't want to acknowledge that those grievances are real and that message is sound. Yeah, it's burn it down, Jack. Burn it down. What the polls show young Americans really want. Go pre-order it on Amazon. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, brother. Hey, Rich, where you from? You don't know Gator. Right back. Human Events Daily.
One communist on the faculty of one university is one communist too many. One communist among the American advisors at Yalta was one communist too many.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back live, Human Events Daily. Folks, some weeks are non-stop. You know what it's like: early mornings, late nights, long hours on the road or in the studio. I was just on the road for 3 weeks, but I got back to my ghost bed. Let me tell you, I'm sleeping so good on my ghost bed. Because when my schedule gets like that, when your schedule gets like that, especially with summer, people are traveling, people are going on vacation, you're visiting family, you're doing so many different things. You know that getting a good night's sleep is not a luxury. It is essential. In fact, think of it as an investment. It's actually a health investment in yourself. And if you are waking up hot, constantly tossing and turning, or not feeling rested, your mattress could be the problem. It's one of the reasons that I switched to Ghost Bed. Every Ghost Bed mattress comes with built-in cooling technology. No expensive upgrade required. They're designed for hot sleepers, providing excellent support and make a real difference when you got long days ahead. One thing I especially like is that Ghost Bed gives you 101 nights to try it in your own home. You're not making a decision after one night in a showroom. You get more than 3 months to see if it's right for you. Right now, they're also running their 4th of July sale, and Human Events viewers can save an additional 10% with promo code POSO. With financing, some Ghost Beds cost around $1 a day. Visit ghostbed.com/POSO and use promo code POSO to save even more. All right, very excited to have back on the show. It is, of course, the head pollster of the Honest Polling Company, Mark Mitchell. What's going on, Mark?
Doing well. Great to be back. Two pollsters in one day. Me and Rich. You can't do that.
I think we need to, because I feel like I feel like that there's a lot of information going around out there. People are seeing the elections. They're going, whoa, what's going on? How are all these DSA candidates winning? And guys like Barris, guys like yourself, you have been saying all along, you've been sounding the alarm that this anti-establishment wave is coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And people will call me a black pillar or doomer, but I've been saying the same stuff for like a year and a half now, which is, hey, you guys forgot what you got elected for, and you're going to lose people. And are you going to lose everybody? No, you're going to keep the straight ticket Republican voters. But the things that the Republicans don't want to acknowledge is that they do not have the same coalition they had 30 or 40 years ago. They've got to get independents. They got to get socialists. Actually, some socialists voted for Trump. And so if your strategy is going to be to point the finger at the socialists and say socialists are bad, it's going to have like limited returns. Like that's just what is going to happen. And so, as Rich probably said with his book, Burn It Down, there's an aspect of economic messaging that's just like completely wrong. Like they are not going to win until they show that there is a better alternative to socialism that the right can provide. And I don't think we have that right now. I think a lot of people thought the economic populist parts of MAGA was that, and we can argue about whether it's being implemented or not. But what's not happening is we don't see a coherent, unified message on the economy between Republicans and Trump. And it's been hurting him for a very long time. He's said some quotes that are going to come back and bite him when they start running ads in the fall. And you can't make those go away. You need like really single-minded laser focus on this economic, I think, warfare. And I think what we're seeing is that in 2016, Trump was a little bit more of a peacetime president. And what America needed after the Biden inflation, after the economic crisis and the wage suppression and all the stuff that we've been through economically, they need a wartime president. And a wartime president has to signal confidence on like the main mission, which is fighting the enemy.
Let me just, I'll say when you say wartime president, and when you say wartime president, you're talking about the war at home, and the war should be the socialist revolution that is currently going on in the United States. And it is being driven because people feel that their expectations are not being met. It's really what it comes down to, and specifically on the economic front. And people can throw data and charts and say, oh, well, there's this and this one and that, and this is better and that one's better. And it's like, look, people want to feel that relief. They want to feel the relief that was promised after the Biden years, and they're not feeling it. Then they go to the gas pump, and I just posted the gas price up, and I said what I said, and the people could say, "Oh, I'm upset about it," right? I don't think it's great, but it's certainly obviously not something you want when you go into an election year. But guess what? If you're in office, you need to deal with this, or right, the Republicans who are running for re-election in the Senate, or running for election in the Senate, the Republicans are running for re-election in the House, they are all going to be asked this question. And you can't sit there and just say, oh, Biden, 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 Biden. That's what's at stake in this election. And if you don't do that, we will get socialists like Abdul El-Sayed in office who are saying they want to defund the police and abolish ICE.
I mean, excellent. That's exactly the situation. If Republicans can't propose a pragmatic, credible alternative, which I think should be national populism, to socialism, then we are going to be socialists because it is winning with the under 40 voter.
By the way, I said that last week on a podcast, man, and the neocons got pretty upset with me for simply saying that we need to be nationalist populists, which I'm like, I'm sorry, I thought we've been saying that since 2015, and the guy came down the escalator.
Yeah, a nationalist is a dirty word now. You know what I mean? And there's like a real big fight there, obviously, to maintain an establishment status quo. We're seeing it on both sides. We're actually seeing the exact same thing over the exact same issues play out on both the Democrat and the Republican side, which again means, in my opinion, there's a huge opportunity for a political horseshoe effect, which the Republicans should be on the playing field because they captured the youth with Trump. They won this, and now they're ceding territory because they're losing this war that you're talking about, this domestic war. Now, the way that you're right, it's a war against socialism. It is absolutely a war against socialism. But the way you fight that war isn't by blowing up socialism. You have to fight that war by making voters be convinced that by voting for you, they get something they want more. Because people will say, well, socialism, you're going to wind up in a ditch. They're going to pull a bullet in your head. Somebody's going to knock on your door. There's going to be scarcity or whatever, right? And these are all very valid concerns. But people don't feel that now. They feel an inability to live in modern day America the way that they feel like they should, the American dream, right? So, like, how do you give them an alternative? Saying the status quo is great is not going to be fighting that war. It needs to be like a believable plan. And again, like MAGA was great. I think it was like the good opening salvo of this battle, but where's the plan? Like, where are the supply lines for this fight? Where are the think tanks that are forming national populist agendas? Where's the Project 2028, like 29, whatever? Like, and again, you're going to have to like make a leap of faith. You're going to have to make a leap of faith, Republicans. Yes, boomer politics are pretty much still ruling the party, but the math is the math, and it's going to go the other way. And I think you're going to see it because these younger people, like Rich probably talked about, are not very idealistic. And you can try and teach them more about socialism, and maybe they'll listen and maybe they won't. But at the end of the day, if they vote for the socialist, they think they're voting for somebody that's going to give them something. And you know what? They're kind of right. If a socialist gets into office, you're going to see Medicare for all. You're going to see, the paid for child care plans. You're going to see that stuff. Will it destroy the treasury? Yeah, of course. But they're going to get something. And right now, in the current system, they're not getting anything. And we know this because the people that voted for Trump in 2016 kind of thought he was going to blow up the Republican Party and turn them into this. And I think the people that are bouncing, like you said, are people who are like, well, it never, like, what are we doing here, guys? You know what I mean? And again, like, the political capital, me and Rich have been talking about this for a year and a half, is gone. And it was like, hey, you're going to lose the political capital. You're losing the political capital. It's gone now. And on the gas price thing, again, can Americans stomach an increase of $1 in gas? Sure, 100%. But it's symbolic. It's a political football that the Republicans will very transparently say, well, look, we brought gas prices down $1. What's the problem? Well, it's like we shouldn't even be talking about gas prices. We should be talking about how wages are up 10% because we got rid of 10 million foreigners. Like, that's what we should be talking about. And I know that that's asking a lot. But again, it comes back to a vision of the future. You don't have to deliver the golden age today. Nobody expects that. But they need to see that you're fighting that war. That's the end of the war. We defeat socialism when you give us a golden age. The golden age means a revitalized American middle class. So if you're going to run on something, Republicans, how are you going to rebuild the middle class? That should be everything they talk about. Every single thing they talk about. Instead, it's communism's
every
bad.
day.
Syed's a Muslim.
Every single day. And there's a way. And by the way, I wrote a book 2 years ago that lays out quite a bit of how to crush communist revolutions. And it may just be time to revisit the Unhumans book, because there's a whole chapter in there. And I think we might need to flesh that out, where we talk about specifically this, that you must embrace national populism. And if you do not embrace nationalist populism, you don't embrace MAGA, what MAGA actually means, then you are going to get Mangione, you're going to get Mondami, you're going to get Abdul El-Sayed, who hates white people, apparently gets really mad if you don't pronounce his name correct. Right back.
We're going to call this the Jack Posobiec Appreciation Hour. I can say confidently, I think Josh Shapiro would be the vice presidential nominee if it wasn't for Jack Posobiec. And that is, I'm being honest.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back live, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice. I watched, that speech that was given by the Democrat Senate candidate out there in Michigan. And I saw him, and he said, these Republicans, they're running all these ads against me, and they can't even say my name right. And if you can't say my name right, get it out of your darn mouth. Get it out of my darn mouth if you can't say my name right. Really simple. See? Simple as that. Simple as that. My gosh, these guys, absolute clown show. It's the Star Wars Cantina, folks. It's literally just the Star Wars Cantina. Let's get back to Mark Mitchell here. Mark, so that being said, now I do, by the way, one of the things that we talk about in the book is mock these people. They try to act so serious, just literally mock them to their face, actually because they can't take it and it drives them crazier. So if you really want to like tweak them, we say mockery is the bane of their existence when it comes to leftists. But one of the other things that we say very clearly is you have to undercut their messages, because what they're doing is they're addressing real concerns from voters. And if you're not addressing those concerns, then the voters are not going to listen. They're going to tune you out.
I've been saying that for, yes, 100%. If they get one of these guys into office, we will see a $10 trillion housing bill. And you know what? The younger people will get something. They will get, money for a down payment or something. And they're not really thinking long term, because again, when people say kitchen table and economic issues, when they say affordability crisis, and right now, I mean, it's just sad the extent to which the Republicans have conflated this into a fight over whether a burrito should cost $20 or not. This is not really about inflation. It's not about Biden's inflation. That was the cherry on top of a rotten system that has suppressed wages and concentrated wealth. And both parties are in on it. That's the crazy thing, is that the establishment Democrat wing that tried to keep Syed from winning is super corporatist. They, you know what I mean? Like it's two sides of the same coin, right? And so, yes, we have this ideological problem, but it's being created by an establishment on both the right and the left that should be looking out for the voter. And what my message has been is that the Republican Party should be the mature side that acknowledges that and fixes it, because it's the side with principles. It's the side that believes in our founding principles. It's the side that should be more Christian and religious. It's the side that should have the moral authority here. And, it's like, where are we, right? It's like we're just as corporatist, I think, in many ways. And whether we are or not, we do things that make that the perception. And it's like, don't talk to me about an affordability
that's
crisis.
why, that's why I said what I said, last week. And I stand by that when they say, if this is the system of capitalism today, then I'm not a capitalist. How can I be a capitalist in today's system? I'm a nationalist populist. I'm a nationalist populist because that is the system that I'm fighting for. That's the system that I've been fighting for since day one in this movement. That's the system. And I've given speeches at CPAC saying that we need to focus on trade and immigration. Trade and immigration. These are the two main issues that separate Donald Trump and a Donald Trump voter from the old right, from the Mitt Romneys and the George W. Bushes and the John McCains and the Paul Ryans. These were the people who lost with the working class. They couldn't possibly get elected in Pennsylvania or Ohio or Michigan or Wisconsin. And now a lot of those Rust Belt voters, by the way, are down in the Sun Belt. So you're going to need a lot more of them to be able to help you out to get across the board. And I really wish that I would see these candidates actually start to understand that.
Well, we need a nuanced understanding of capitalism, and somebody has to do that work. And I don't know who is going to be the standard bearer for that, but this is not capitalism. It doesn't work for anybody anymore. The wealth concentration is off the charts, the rent seeking and all of this other stuff. And the problem is that most people think that we have capitalism in the Republican Party, and they will defend it fiercely by calling any change to the status quo socialist. Now, I'm not saying we should be socialist. I'm not saying we should stop laughing at socialists. I'm saying that we need the maturity to specifically lay out exactly what parts of our current capitalist system are not working.
And by the way, like I'll throw this out right away, that the very first thing that we should be focusing on is borders. And the very second thing we should be focusing on is the Fed. If you go and look at what the Federal Reserve has been doing for all these years, then you would know right away that we have a kind of zombie capitalism as our current system. This is not actual free market enterprise. And if you're going to sit there and say, oh, everything's great about the system and just talk around the Federal Reserve, then honestly, like you're kind of just a joke. I don't even know how to explain anything to you, because they've been providing quantitative easing to their buddies on Wall Street and their buddies in the financial institutions since 2008. And that's why since 2008, as I said, if anyone actually listened to my comments in that clip last week, that we have had a K-shaped economy for the last 20 years.
Yep. Yeah, it's longer than that in many ways. It's the asset class.
Well,
we have an asset class.
Yes.
They're powerful. They keep the Republican Party establishment in power. Now, I would present one additional enemy, which is very useful and which the voters, I think, want to see anger, retribution taken out on. And it's a problematic area for the current Republican regime, and that is large corporations. And so we have a large corporation problem. And
well, yeah, and I throw that in with kind of, those are the people who are bringing in the H-1Bs. Those are the people who are fighting us on the border. They're the ones who are fighting us on tariffs. They're the ones who have got us stuck in with China. And, it was really by kind of pulling thread on China that I came up against this problem as well in the very first place. And I remember that's who was fighting Donald Trump all the way back in the 2016 primaries. Mark, where can people go to follow you?
TheHonestPoll.com. Come check it out. It's my new outfit, and also on Twitter at HonestPollster. So new independent outlet. We're going to do basically just polling for the people, public sentiment work, and I'm not going to be beholden to anybody or taking checks from any political party.
All right, check them out, folks. All right, I want to go now to President Trump. It will be speaking in Red Rock Resort on the outskirts of Las Vegas very shortly to promoting working family tax cuts. So right as we were talking about, something that they can show directly to the people. That's what President Trump is going to be touting. And our own Ben Bergquam is on the scene. Ben, how are you?
What's up, brother? No, you're absolutely right, man. It's all about service economy out here, and no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security. So that's the message out here, getting back to the economy like you were just talking about.
100%. What are you hearing from people out there, Ben?
I was out talking to the crowd out there, and the crowd is filling in here, where, as you mentioned, in Red Rock Casino. And it's very clear. The people get it, especially here in Las Vegas. They've seen a direct result. President Trump's tax cut in that first year, the largest tax cut for working class Americans in American history. When you come out here and you talk to the people that are servers, that work in the restaurants, that work in the casinos, work all over the valley here, they all get it. They've had a bump in their paycheck. One of the guys I talked to said his tax return, or the amount he paid in taxes, went down by 50%. And so when you talk about an impact to you directly, these guys, they love President Trump. And what's crazy is this is actually where that idea came from, no tax on tips. It was a service worker came up to President Trump, met him, and said, hey, could you stop taxing tips? Could you make part of your campaign? This was when he was running again in 2024. Could you make part of the campaign no tax on tips? And he said, I like that. Let's do that. That's what President Trump is. He's a pragmatic guy. He gets, here's a good idea. And he says, why haven't we done that before? Las Vegas is a direct result of that. It's where it was inspired, and it's also where they're feeling it the most.
Well, that's absolutely great. So are people seeing that? Are they seeing that kick in then on the where they're doing their tax returns, getting refunds, all that?
100%. 100%. Everyone I spoke to that's in the service economy that relies on tips for their wages or on overtime for their wages says it's had a direct result in their paychecks and their take-home money since it went into law, and so it's made a huge impact. And again, it's one of those things when you get distracted by the other things that the left or other people want us to get distracted by, we forget all the good stuff President Trump has done.
100%, and important to make sure to remind people that in a midterm year, providing relief for workers. That's Ben Bergquam. We're going to go back to him. Of course, Real America's Voice will be covering that as President Trump is set to speak very soon. As for me, ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.